everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Journey to Purpose. With me today is the fabulous Tammy Vincent. Tammy, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. First, very easy question is, where in the world are you currently?
I am in Merritt Island, Florida, so right by the Space Center, about an hour from Disney World.
I bet you get to see all the rocket launches.
Yes.
Very, very cool. Very jealous. Well, so you are a coach and a speaker. Let's talk about how you got into that and what kind of stuff you do. So when did your journey begin to move into what you're doing now?
The actual journey has been going for a really long time since I realized how much healing I had to do. But it wasn't until about 20 years in that I realized of my own healing from alcoholic parents, dysfunction, abuse of every kind, that I realized that I had a lot of gifts and that I could share with people. I was kind of everybody's free mentor, like their best friend, their coach, that, everybody just came to me for everything because I had so many tools in my box. I at that point was an NLP practitioner. I could do EFT tapping. I did essential oils to calm people down. I did so many different things to deal with stress and anxiety and mindset blocks and things like that, that I really was like, wow, I can really help a lot of people. So I just went for it. I've had a coaching certificate for 20 years, but it wasn't until my father passed that I felt like, okay, now is time for me to go out and I can tell my story. I'm not going to hurt his feelings because I didn't have any hard feelings for my father at all. So I didn't really want to talk about anything when he was alive, but it was all pent up. So it needed to be talked about.
Interesting. So going back to sort of, I guess, is it your childhood that the alcoholism, the problem started occurring? What age?
Yeah. Right from the beginning. I mean, my mom did cocaine with me when she was pregnant with me.
Goodness.
So it started in the womb, the stress, the fighting, the arguments, my mom was a chain smoker, smoked 2.5 to 3 packs a day my entire life, but she had a lot of mental issues herself. So she was really fighting a lot of demons. And we just, as the kids, we just took the brunt of that. If mom was in a bad mood, we got in trouble. If, it was just very unstable environment.
That's tough. And how many of you were there, brothers and sisters wise?
I had an older brother and a younger sister.
Middle child.
Yep. Yeah.
Has its own challenges.
Whew. Yeah. So it was a tough one, but it's like I said, I look back at it now completely differently. I didn't know what I knew back then. So now I really want to spread the word, help parents. If a mom has a husband that's drinking, let them understand that even though they think they're there and doing the right thing, that the kids are really taking the brunt of a lot of that emotional abandonment. And so I like, even parents in recovery, they know that they're not able to give from a full cup. So I just try to navigate that with parents, children, whoever.
No, it sounds amazing. And I think it's so interesting thing you want to talk about that you brought up with the parents not being there. So of course, parenting has evolved throughout the last century and our expectations are very, very different. But I think what you allude to is around the fact that if you are focused on the disease, the addiction of the alcohol, how can you give your children the attention that they need? Is that kind of where you're going?
Exactly. Because even though, both of my parents were alcoholics, but they were wrapped up in their own thing. And even my father, being that my mother was an abusive alcoholic, he was just trying to save himself. So he didn't have time. I always say my father never did anything wrong, like purposely. He never meant to set out to hurt us. But at the same time, he wasn't there to do anything right.
Yeah.
He told me when I was 13, he said, your mom and I are doing irreparable damage to you kids, and I don't know how to help you. But then never said anything about it again.
Yeah, right. Okay. I know I'm doing wrong, but I don't know what to do about it. But how often is it that people actually acknowledge, like how out loud? I guess you didn't do anything about it, but that acknowledgement, is that significant in the alcoholic sort of mindset?
I've never heard of anybody else whose parent has admitted that they knew that they were doing damage to them. Because usually, that's their norm. That's the kids' norm. Everybody just grows up in this complete and utter chaos. And I don't think it's until either one parent gets sober or something severe happens. They go to jail or they get arrested or, something big happens or they hurt themselves or they hurt somebody else. I don't think it's until then that there's any kind of reality check. They're just in this delusional world of this is just the way it is. And there's so much denial when it comes to addiction. Very few people are going to say, I understand that I drink a lot and I'm hurting you. It just doesn't happen.
No, absolutely. I well know that. And so you said that your journey took about 20 years to get to the point where you felt you were able to help others. Part of that was your dad passing. But what healing did you have to do for yourself in that time?
Did a lot. I actually realized how disconnected I was with reality when I was getting ready to have my first child when I was 26. And I realized that I didn't even understand what unconditional love was. So I was like, how can I be a parent? Like, I don't know how to parent. I was never parented. I don't have memories hugging my mother. And I really realized at that point, and of course, we didn't have the internet back then, so I couldn't just Google all this stuff. So I really threw myself into any kind of self improvement I could do. Like, I needed to learn how to love. And I'm like, how do I even do that? Like, I don't even know what that feels like. So I went out and bought a puppy. It's like, I was like, that should test be able to be one way to test at least my ability to love unconditionally. But then I realized as I was doing that, I was like, wow, I don't understand parenting. I don't understand how to have a real relationship. I was basically a shell of a person. I was always told what to say and what to do and what to think and what to feel. So I didn't understand that I was attracted to unhealthy relationships. I didn't understand any of that. So I started with therapy. I realized, talk therapy was good, but I always realized there was more. And I'm loving that I'm in the world that we're in now because there's so much access to so many different modalities. But I was a chronic learner. So if somebody said, hey, you ought to go to a hypnotherapist and have them hypnotize you, I'm like, okay, well, let me learn how to do it first. Or if someone said, oh, well, a lot of those stories that you have, you can give them different meanings and they can not be so triggering. So I was like, oh, that sounds like NLP. So let me go ahead and get that certification so I can learn. And that's just my style. But in that, I learned a lot. So I did a lot of different therapies. I did go to hypnotherapy. I did, I worked with an NLP practitioner. I still go to Reiki. I still do yoga. I still journal every day. There's things that I continue to do. But it was just a combination of everything. So now it's like I can take something. If someone says to me, well, a good example is my very first coaching client talked to me for 18 minutes. And she said, Tammy, I've been in therapy for 11 years. And in 18 minutes, you just told me more about why I am the way I am. And one quick thing I can do to change it that changed my whole life. And I said, because I was you. I remember those feelings of just chronic people pleasing and just doing anything for everybody to just get some sort of validation or to not get in trouble or to, walking on eggshells that millions of people are out there doing right now. And I can help them through that. So
that's wonderful. And so it's interesting, and I know everyone's unique, but is there a set of behaviors that are common to children of alcoholics or children of parents who do some sort of chemical abuse? Or does it vary?
I don't think it's not. My podcast is actually called Adult Child of Dysfunction because of what I've found after dealing primarily with adult children of alcoholics is that dysfunction is dysfunction. So whether you grow up with an addict or you grew up with money problems to where your parents were working 3 jobs and they were just always stressed out and just not there for you, or there was just, physical abuse in the house or any kind of dysfunction that's chaotic like that, it gives kids certain general ideas about the world. One is that the world is not safe. 2 is that they can't trust people. So they go into adulthood with, kind of that walking on eggshells, hyper vigilant, always waiting for the next shoe to fall or the next thing to drop, just kind of scared to be alive, really, is a good way to put it. And then they have very big trust issues. They don't know what healthy relationships look like. So our brains are, unfortunately, they're great. They're there to protect us and we develop all these coping mechanisms, but our brains also like familiarity. So where we might see red flags about something that feels uncomfortable or somebody that feels uncomfortable, it doesn't matter. Our brains are more comfortable with familiarity. So we would rather be with somebody that might be completely toxic than make the changes and be uncomfortable enough to change that, if that makes sense.
It does.
So
I'm saying with you, I love all the different modalities. From a brain point of view, the pain is still familiar, therefore there's a comfort in it. And I always say that with my own therapy clients is, sometimes the change, the fear of the change is worse than the actual outcome itself, but you have to push through that, don't you?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But that's, and again, until you hear a podcast or see somebody talking about it or go to a therapist,
Mm.
you don't know any better. You're just attracted to those type of people. You don't know why you keep ending up with these narcissistic people or these, these controlling people. Or you don't know why when somebody says, or you get that gut feeling that something doesn't feel right, that you don't listen to it. And it's because you've been trained and conditioned not to listen to it when you grow up in that kind of dysfunction. So yeah,
It's
there's a lot. Have you ever heard of the laundry list?
I don't think so.
So it's called the laundry list, and it was basically came out of adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families,
Okay.
that whole 12-step program. And it's a list of 13 characteristics that most adult children of alcoholics or dysfunctional families have.
Interesting.
Yes, you should look it up. It's
Mm.
really funny because I've had people go, oh, well, my parents didn't drink. Their parents did, but they didn't. And I'm like, just look at that list and see what you think. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, I have 10 of them. And I'm like, because you're still in that generational trauma of growing up with alcoholism or addiction or whatever it is. But for anybody out there listening, if you've never read the laundry list and you question like, hey, did I grow up in this kind of dysfunction? It will make a lot of sense to you when you start reading it.
Now, I'll definitely look that up afterwards. One thing you said I want to call out again is the generational thing. So it's not always just parents, right? It's grandparents, it's the parents' parents. And I know in my therapy practice that generational trauma can be passed down. And even if it skips a generation, it doesn't necessarily skip a generation, does it?
No, because it's not necessarily that it doesn't matter that, I always say the alcohol or whatever the device is or the substance is, that's not the problem. The problem is all the habits and the patterns that come along with that. So even if, if you grew up and your parents, and let's say I was an alcoholic and my kids never touched a drink, they still have all of my coping mechanisms. They modeled me. They followed what I did. So even though you skip, it skips a generation, it really doesn't, because I told my parents or my kids, even if I never picked up a bottle, by default, they're kind of like second generation alcoholics, even if I never picked up a bottle, because I was dealing with my own trauma and I raised them from a trauma reactive place in the beginning until my healing got a little more underway and I understand what I was doing. But, trauma physically changes your DNA. Have you ever heard of the rat in that experiment with the rats?
Yes. Yeah. That one is quite disturbing, isn't it?
It really is. And can I do it in 1 minute so people that are listening are
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, I
yeah.
get it.
Please do.
So they gave rats, baby rats or rats, they wafted them or gave them a scent of cherry blossom or rose blossom or something. And when they did that, they shocked their feet. So they smell the rose, they get shocked, and they scurry and they panic and they do whatever. Well, what they found is eventually, it's kind of like Pavlov's conditioning. Eventually, they would just smell the scent and their feet would be shocked, or they would, scurry like they were being shocked. What they found is 2 generations later, all the baby rats had to do was smell that cherry blossom or that rose or whatever it was they were using, and they would have that same shock trauma response. So it was in their DNA that scent caused that the trauma. And no, the grandparent rat didn't say to the mama rat, hey, don't smell this. That's not how it literally physically changed their DNA. So you can imagine if it can do that with rats with just something that simple, how badly, hearing the same words over and over again from your parents or your grandparents, how deeply embedded even that gets.
I mean, the rat one is the other one I love is The Body Keeps the Score. Have you read that book?
Oh yeah, I love that book.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like you, I'm so fascinated in different modalities. So I'm turned of a cold and it's just my throat is growing a little bit. But with The Body Keeps the Score and with the rat experiment, it just goes to show that these things aren't just in your mind. They are embedded so deeply into our physiology, into our psychology. It permeates everywhere of us. And being aware in the first place. I mean, that's again, first step is awareness. It's so important.
Absolutely. And, I like to tell people too, it's just, and I do a lot of somatic work with people because the body keeps score is so important if you want to really get to the root causes of things. I guess it's so important to make it understandable why you have to get to the root causes of things, because everything is stored in your nervous system.
Yeah.
So no matter what, It's stored in your nervous system. It's stored in your subconscious programming. It's stored somewhere. So you have to get to the bottom of it. So just saying positive affirmations, I have a lot of people say, well, I don't understand. I wake up every morning and I tell myself I'm beautiful and I'm amazing and I'm lovable. And then somebody looks at me funny and I cringe and feel horrible and small. And I'm like, because you don't truly believe those things. You're saying them on the surface, but your subconscious mind, which is what's running the show, jumps out and reacts to what it truly believes.
The subconscious work is so interesting. And I will be honest with you, when I first came into the therapy world, I was not a believer. Because I'd been in the army, I was a very practical person. I like to get stuff done. And I only came to it because someone very close to me needed therapy. I was like, well, if they're going to do this, I want to understand how it works. And I think what blew my mind, similar to you, it wasn't the talking therapies, it is the other modalities. When talking therapy has its place, absolutely. But I did NLP, I did subconscious work, I did clinical hypnotherapy as well. And it's the different layers that you have to get to. And understanding that you could consciously be saying one thing and subconsciously be saying the other thing. And that's why people don't realize what's going on, is they're not aligned with what they actually want or what they think they want.
Exactly. And that's why I say it's so important to work with a therapist, a coach, a group, a friend, somebody to hold you accountable, because you don't realize how you react when you're reacting from your subconscious. So it's nice to have somebody to, first of all, you need to be aware, like, wow, why did I say that? But then have somebody have the skills to be able to help you figure out why you reacted that way.
Absolutely.
Because it's there. I mean, there's a reason you did it. Nothing's by you. And I always tell people, we just don't listen to our gut enough. If we say something and we instinctually we think, wow, that's not who I am. Well, you're right. It's not. That's the correct thing, is that's not who I am. But you got to figure out why. Most people just go, wow, that's not like me. And then they stop. Well, figure out what it is that caused you to do that, but you need a support system to do that.
I had a client recently who came to me after a long time away, and she'd been through a lot of different problems and grief and loss, and she'd done something that she was really not proud of. And she's like, it's so unlike me. I said, but what, look at what was going on around you. Look at how you're reacting. This was happened to be an outlet to her inner conscious kind of going, I'm not okay. And that this not okay manifests itself in a certain way. But she sat on it for 6 months before she came to me. And I was like, why was that? I said, well, I was just like, you're so unlike me. I thought you'd judge me. I was like, that's not my job. But also, like, if you know it's not like you, it's not right, then there's something else going on. Right. And sitting on it doesn't solve it. You need to figure out what it is, so that it doesn't happen again, or so that in the future, if that situation arises, you know how to handle it. But it's quite scary, right? Isn't it, for people to kind of go through that process?
Oh yeah. And especially because when you get you get into those grief or those high states of overwhelm or the high states of anxiety, it's kind of like I say, you have your logical brain and then you have your stressed brain. You got your thinking brain and then your brain that your reacting brain. And when you're stressed out or you're anxious or you're upset, you're doing all of those things just out of reaction. You're not processing correctly anything. So even talking yourself out of it is almost impossible.
Absolutely.
Because you're not in your right mind, really.
Yeah. And I think people don't realize that actually when you're in that state of high stress, anxiety, the chemicals that should come through to your brain to go, hey, it's okay, they don't get there because your stress brain is just overriding everything completely, as you say. That there is no, this is the fight or flight in its full response, which does mean in some cases you might do things that are completely out of character because your brain, your body thinks that that's the way to keep you safe.
Exactly. And that's the brain. I mean, that's the brain's job. And so kudos to the brain, but sometimes
chill out a little bit,
I know it needs to slow down a little bit. Yeah. And I always say, it's the brain is there to keep us safe. That's what it's there to do. And everything it does to protect us, but it can also be fooled. You can also trick it. Yeah. So, and that's what, you can rewrite those stories. You can end those triggers, instead of pushing everything down and just going, oh God, I got triggered. I'm going to stay away from that triggers me. Do something different with it. Learn to sit with it, learn to face some of the triggers. And I know that sounds horrible to some people. They're like, oh God, no. But every time when you're talking about your mind being either safe or unsafe, every time you get triggered and you avoid that thing, that triggered you, what your brain is saying, wow, I didn't do that. So that triggering thing must be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm safe because I didn't face that. It must be bad. And it just perpetuates the whole fear and anxiety thing. So I know that's such a hard concept for people to even wrap their head around. And if you're out there listening and you're just in this beginning journey, don't think that we're saying, go face all your fears, go blah, blah, blah. But eventually in a safe and controlled environment, you're going to want to.
Absolutely.
Because, but don't run out and just face everything you're afraid of. Be
No.
like, Tammy said so.
Yeah. Well, take it one step at a time. And like you
Baby
say, Tammy,
steps.
do it with somebody who knows what they're doing as well to guide you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
So
So
you have this amazing Facebook group that you work with, the Children of Dysfunctional Families. So is that a private group? Can you tell us about your group a bit and how that works?
it's called Children of Dysfunctional Families Thriving Now, and it's a Facebook group. It is private, but you can come in and join. Anybody can join. It's a place for hope and healing. Like, it's a place to go and just to kind of vent your feelings or talk to someone or get advice. I have the podcast called Adult Child of Dysfunction. So a lot of the people that come to that group are from the podcast. So it's either people that are experts on how to help people get over some things, or it's people that have gone the journey and have overcome some pretty serious adversities. So it's a good little mesh of kind of everything. But I tell people, just go on there, join it, see what's in there. I need to be more active in it, honestly. I, for some reason, couldn't go live in it for the last couple months. My live button disappeared. So I don't know if I was in semi-Facebook jail or something, but
who knows?
that's come back. So now I will start going live again in there and everything. But yeah, it's just a fun little thing. A lot of my coaching clients are in there because we just have fun. We just talk and we ask questions. And
I think it's a great community for people who, who are exploring their own trauma, as you say, and it's a safe place. I think it's a great one for people to look out for.
Right. I mean, I take a lot of people out of there that come in that are just trolling for clients and trolling for this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, this is a safe place. This is a place to just to ask a question or just get a little positivity in your life.
Brilliant. Now,
So,
you've had your own medical challenges recently. 3 weeks, was it 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, it'll be a month on the 20th. I had actually a full-blown stroke.
I mean, I'm just amazed that you're sat here and in a nice possible way, you couldn't tell. So what happened? And the reason I want to bring this up is strokes in women are so less known, and I think sometimes those instances are a bit different as well. So it's just really good to have someone who's experienced it to share that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because they still don't know what caused it. My cholesterol isn't really high, my sugar isn't really high, and stroke is just a clot that somehow gets to your brain. It just makes it through. I was, by the grace of God, I said I was 100% blessed. I had blown a blood vessel in my eye the night before. So this is a Sunday night. And because it was kind of tender, I went to my primary care doctor to ask him to flush it out. And when I was in there, I went in and he's like, do you feel funny or do you feel okay? And I was like, no, I was like, my face is a little tingly. Like my left side just felt a little bit tingly. And he took my blood pressure. The nurse took my blood pressure and said, well, your blood pressure is a little high. It was like 160 something over something. And I was like, well, that is high for me because normally I'm like 120 over 65. So the doctor came in and he's looking at my eye and he said, your eye is going like this. He said, do you feel funny? I said, nah, I'm getting a little more tingly. So I could feel it up in my forehead and down in my jaw, felt a little tight. That's all I felt at this point. So he took my blood pressure again. This is only 5 minutes later. It was 185 over 91.
Goodness.
Then he said, my friend, I think you're having a stroke. So he said, hold out your hands. So I held out my hands and my left hand immediately kind of felt heavy.
Yeah.
It kind of dropped. And then he said, squeeze my hands. So then all of a sudden I started noticing, oh, I can't really squeeze. Like it doesn't feel like I'm giving it any pressure. He's like, you are definitely having a stroke. He said, call your husband, tell him to come in here fast and take you to the emergency room. Well, before I even got out to the car, my whole left side was paralyzed completely.
Goodness.
So I just dropped. I was like, whoa, can't walk, like fell down. And then I couldn't talk because I knew what I was trying to say, but it wasn't coming out that way. So I could hear myself mumbling and they were like, it's okay. It's okay. So they called 911. By the time the paramedics got there, my blood pressure was 222 over 118. It literally happened in 15 minutes.
Wow.
15, 20 minutes. But because I was at the doctor's house, a mile and a half away from the hospital, they were able to give me that ATP or whatever the clot busting medicine is. And immediately they gave it to me, and immediately my hand started, I could feel it again. My face started, my husband said my mouth was like drooping down to here. Like my whole face was paralyzed and everything. But for women, especially guys, if you have friends, especially I'm only 56. Like that is very young to just have a full-blown stroke for no reason. They still got me on like heart monitors and stuff. You could see it in my chest here, just to try to figure out what the heck, But had I gone home or had the doctor's appointment been delayed a little bit and this had happened 45 minutes later, it would have been a different story. We wouldn't be standing here today talking, because I would have been by myself. I would have probably gone, oh, I'm just dehydrated. I need to eat. I'm going to drink something and lay down.
Mm-hmm.
And that clot would have destroyed my brain. So if you have friends, like they say, the signs are like your face, you'll get like paralysis of your face, your speech. It's face. I don't remember what it's your face.
Your arms.
Your arms, yes, your arms, and one of your arms. It's usually one side will go numb, start to get tingly and numb. And then the other one is just speed. It's timing is everything. But then it's your speech, face, arms, speech, timing, I think, or time or something, whatever. But I just say that to say this. If you have a friend and all of a sudden she can't get her words together, or she stumbles on her words, or she just starts like, like holding her shoulder, kind of like my arm feels heavy. I literally didn't feel funny until my blood pressure was 185/90. Is when I really was like, oh, okay, yeah, I feel a little funny. But I didn't feel funny before that. I didn't have anything. But by the time I got to the hospital, they said they only had about 19 minutes to give me that medicine, or I would have stayed the way I was. So it's very scary.
So scary.
It's so, and I say that because since then I've talked to people that have been like, oh yeah, my sister had a stroke and she was with me and I didn't even know. But if you know the people you're with, I mean, if anybody all of a sudden starts going, blah, 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 because you literally just can't put a word out. Because
notice.
You've got a clot in that part of your brain. So there's no oxygen to that part of your brain. And it's the part of your brain that controls your sensory and your speech and everything else. So those are the first things that go. But yeah, I tell people, like, watch your friends and family members, because they still don't know what caused it.
I mean, so pleased that you're in the right place at the right time. It's one of those weird things. My husband's uncle had a heart attack about a month ago now, but he actually died and he was resuscitated on site. Against one of those things, if you're going to have a heart attack, turns out have one at an airport, because all the equipment is there. And so he was in a place called Birmingham in the UK, totally unexpected. He went down, he was dead, and they brought it back because they had a defibrillator. They could get into the hospital really quickly. And with all these things, time is the most important thing. Of just, I think for a heart attack, the odds are like only 5% ever get resuscitated. It's really, and I think strokes are similarly bad.
Well, and it's funny because they said with heart attacks, the paramedic was telling me, he said after the fact, I was talking to him, and he said, if you have a heart attack, some people, it's not the paramedic that saves you. It's the person that starts CPR immediately. He said, but for a stroke, there's nothing a paramedic could do.
Right.
There's nothing they can do except get you as fast as you can get to a hospital. And now, like, that medicine that they give you, it's very risky medicine. Like, there's like 12 things they ask you. And if you have any one of them, they won't give you the medicine. So it's like, if you've ever had, if you have blood thinners, if you've had a concussion, if you've, have high blood sugar, there's like all these disqualifying things, because the medicine literally opens up every single blood vessel in your brain. So if you have a tendency to bleed a lot anyway or something, you won't make it. It'll kill you giving the medicine. So like when they came on, they had to read like 15 warnings. The neurologist had to read them down the screen, and I'm like trying to focus, and I just said, what if? And he's like, oh, you mean what if I don't give you the medicine? And I said, yeah. And he said, you're going to stay right like you are. Well, at that point, I couldn't talk. I couldn't lift up my arm, and I'm like, give me the medicine.
I bet.
But then he said, it's very important that if I have another one, I can't go back to that same hospital because it has to be what's called a comprehensive stroke unit.
Right. Okay.
And because not every hospital is set up to actually, now I can't get the medicine again because I've already had it. So it would make my brain bleed. So now if I had another one, I had to have to go to a different hospital where they have the technology to just go in through the brain and pick the clot out.
Gosh, that's scary stuff.
Which is scary stuff, but it's better than
Than the
poofing
other
your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Between the two options.
Yeah, if I had to pick one, I'm like, but I'm like, yeah, don't shave my head. But no, it was really scary, but it was an eye opener for people out there because obviously now I'm more conscious of what I eat and trying to just do the healthy things, which I was pretty healthy to begin with, but it makes you appreciate life. And it also, going back to the healing thing and what we're talking about, it made me really realize how far I had come in this healing journey. Because for children that grew up in trauma and dysfunction, there's this underlying feeling of I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. And that's what they struggle with their whole lives. And I didn't feel any of that. When I was sitting there with the paramedics, my self-talk was like, okay, God, I don't think you're done with me. I got so much to do. I got projects going on. I'm like, can we please get me to the hospital quickly? But 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it would have been 100% different. I would have been like, well, I guess I got that, what I deserved, or, you got what you got, you got what you got coming to you. My self-talk 15 years ago would have been I wouldn't have fought the way I did.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I feel like I told my people, my clients, and just my fun people that I talk to, I said, I feel like I came out of it stronger because it made me realize how far I've come.
Do you know, that's a wonderful reflection, but also a wonderful lesson for other people, because I'm not saying having a positive mindset is going to cure you of diseases, but I do think it makes a difference to how hard you fight. And like in your case, you were like, no, I'm not done. Like, keep going. And that I do think that makes such a difference to your own recovery when you have a reason to keep going.
Absolutely. And even just the fact that while I was sitting there, my blood pressure is at 220 over 118. I wasn't stressed out. I literally was taking a deep breath and I was picturing white light coming in through my crown and filling my body just like I do when I practice Reiki or anything else. And I was 100% calm, 100%. And I know that helped my body. It helped my body survive because my blood pressure couldn't have gone much higher than 220 over 118 before my head literally exploded. I mean, you know what I mean?
No one needs that. I'm glad that didn't happen to you.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, not. But I remember the paramedic said to the other guy, he goes, okay, her blood pressure is 220 over 118. And I turned around, I said, man, that could kill someone. And they're like, I know, that's why we got you here. I'm like, oh, keep working. Doing your thing. But there was no freak. There was no panic. It was just, I don't know. It was an interesting experience. Let's just say that.
I do. Do you know, when I was in my early 20s, I studied Russian and lived in Russia. I know it's topical right now, but we're not going to worry about the politics. I lived there as a student and I actually got hit by a car. A drunk driver ran through a headlight and knocked me over. And I woke up in hospital and I was super calm the whole time. I didn't know what happened. I knew I was still in Russia. I knew I had to speak Russian. And I remember a similar thing as the paramedics being really worried about me because I was too calm. I'm like, but I have no energy to not be calm. Like I haven't got the energy to scream and shout and cry. Like, everything hurts. And sort of,
right.
It's a case of like, if you have enough energy to make a noise and get really worked up, you're probably not that bad. Like, look for the quiet ones. They're the ones you need to worry about.
That's funny. I never thought about that, but you're right. Yeah.
Keeping it together. But you have to, I think, still have a certain level of something about you to stay that focused and to push through it, as you say, which
I was very, very focused. And that's why I tell people too, like, practice, like if you have anxiety spells and you get very anxious and your calming technique is to grab your finger or to do box breathing or whatever it is, practice those things when you're not anxious. Practice them all the time so that when you are in a space of crises and you're in that wrong mind to process, it's muscle memory. Like, I didn't have to go, oh my God, I'm having a stroke. What do? I just immediately closed my eyes, looked up, because I know when I look up, that's what jumps me from my parasympathetic to my sympathetic nervous system. All I have to do is look like this way for a couple seconds and I'll yawn. I mean, you can try it if you've ever done, but all I did was look up and be like, okay, I need all of the white healing energy into my crown right now. And I just did what I always do. Now, had I been freaking out, I might not have been able to remember to do that.
Absolutely. No, that's a really great lesson. And again, I'm so pleased that it was all okay. Let's hope that they figure out what caused it, or it doesn't happen
Oh, I
again.
know. Yep, they'll figure it out. If not, then maybe it was just a freak of something to tell. Maybe it was a major. I know I have a lot of people that are energy healers, and they all told me that I was just an energetically overloaded, and that some big shift is happening in my world. And I'm like, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, sure, that'll do.
Whatever. That which doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Isn't that what they say?
Absolutely.
So.
Tammy, it's been great. How can people find you if they want to work with you, learn more about what you do, or just have a chat?
Honestly, the easiest way to find me is to come to my podcast. It's Adult Child of Dysfunction. It's on every podcast platform, and I put all of my links in there, all my courses, ways to chat with me, books, everything is in my show notes of just about every single podcast I post.
Brilliant. Well, I'll make sure that goes into these show notes so everyone can find it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on.
No, Tammy, it's been wonderful. I'm so glad you seem to recover from your stroke, and I'm looking forward to just seeing what else you do next. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.